In the 1960s, Los Angeles was a city of contrasts. On one hand, it was a hub of glamour, entertainment, and cultural experimentation. On the other, it was a place where conservative politics and aggressive policing often collided with communities pushing for visibility and acceptance. For LGBTQ people in LA, the era was defined by secrecy, fear, and harassment. Police raids on gay bars were common, and simply gathering with others in a public space carried risk. But one raid in particular would change everything. The 1967 raid on the Black Cat Tavern in Silver Lake sparked outrage, inspired protests, and became one of the first organized gay rights demonstrations in the United States. 2 years before the Stonewall Uprising in New York, the Black Cat Tavern was a neighborhood bar located on Sunset Boulevard in Silver Lake, a part of Los Angeles that was already home to a thriving LGBTQ community. On New Year's Eve in 1966, the bar was packed with people celebrating the arrival of 1967. At the stroke of midnight, patrons kissed their partners, as people do at New Year's. But undercover LAPD officers were waiting. They began grabbing men, beating patrons, and making arrests for same-sex kissing, which at the time was treated as a crime under California law. What should have been a night of joy turned violent. Witnesses recalled officers striking people with pool cues and dragging them out of the bar. At least 16 people were arrested, and several were badly injured. One man had his spleen ruptured in the attack. The raid didn't just disrupt a celebration, it sent a clear message that LGBTQ people in Los Angeles were not safe even in spaces they had carved out for themselves. Police raids on gay bars weren't unusual in the 1950s and 1960s. In fact, they were routine. LGBTQ people were targeted under laws that criminalized same-sex intimacy, cross-dressing, and public gatherings considered immoral. Raids often ended in violence, arrests, and public shaming. Newspapers would publish the names of those arrested, destroying careers and reputations. For many, the fear of exposure was as devastating as the arrest itself. But the Black Cat raid hit a breaking point. Instead of retreating into silence, members of the community organized. Just weeks later, on February 11, 1967, more than 200 people gathered outside the bar to protest the raid. They carried signs, demanded an end to police harassment, and called for equal rights. It was one of the first times in U.S. history that LGBTQ people staged a public demonstration against police brutality. Unlike the more famous Stonewall Uprising in 1969, the Black Cat protest was peaceful and carefully organized, but its impact was profound. The demonstration marked the beginning of a new era of activism in Los Angeles. From the protest came organizations like Pride, Personal Rights in Defense and Education, which published newsletters, raised awareness, and provided legal support for LGBTQ people. Publications like The Advocate, which began in Los Angeles in 1967, grew directly out of this wave of activism. These outlets gave the community a voice at a time when mainstream media ignored or vilified them. The raid also highlighted the broader tensions between the LAPD and marginalized communities during the 1960s. The department was notorious for heavy-handed tactics, whether against African Americans, Latinos, or LGBTQ people. Chief William Parker, who led the LAPD until 1966, promoted a style of policing that emphasized control and aggression. By the time of the Black Cat raid, those tactics were deeply entrenched. For LGBTQ residents of Los Angeles, the police were not protectors, they were oppressors. The outrage from the raid also exposed a growing divide between how Los Angeles presented itself and how it treated its most vulnerable communities. Hollywood was selling the world images of freedom, glamour, and love. But just a few miles away, people were being beaten and jailed for who they loved. That contradiction wasn't lost on activists, who began framing LGBTQ rights as part of a broader struggle for civil rights and human dignity. Though the Black Cat protest did not immediately end police raids or change laws, it laid crucial groundwork. The visibility of the demonstration inspired others to push forward, both in Los Angeles and nationally. Over time, the narrative of resistance at the Black Cat became an important chapter in the story of gay rights. When people look back at the movement today, they often focus on Stonewall, But in LA, the fight started earlier, with a bar in Silver Lake and a community that refused to stay silent. In the decades since, the significance of the Black Cat Raid has been increasingly recognized. The building still stands on Sunset Boulevard. Each year, on anniversaries of the raid, activists and community members gather to honor those who stood up in 1967. It's a reminder that the fight for equality in Los Angeles was not just about celebrity representation or courtroom victories. It began with people risking everything simply by demanding dignity. The Black Cat Raid is remembered today not just as a local event, but as part of a broader movement. It showed that LGBTQ people, even in an era of criminalization and repression, could organize, protest, and demand visibility. It connected Los Angeles to a growing national struggle for rights that would unfold over the next half-century, and it revealed the courage of ordinary people who stood up in extraordinary times. Looking back, the story of the Black Cat is both sobering and inspiring. It's sobering because it shows how recently people in Los Angeles could be beaten and jailed simply for sharing a kiss. But it's inspiring because it shows how resistance can begin in small local moments and ripple outward. The outrage that began in Silver Lake in 1967 helped shape the fight for LGBTQ rights long before the world turned its attention to New York. Today, Los Angeles is often seen as one of the most gay rights-friendly cities in the world. Pride festivals, community centers, and cultural institutions thrive. But that progress didn't happen overnight, and it didn't come without a struggle. It was built on moments like the Black Cat Raid, moments when ordinary people decided they had had enough. The raid on the Black Cat Tavern is a reminder that history isn't just made in headlines or grand political speeches. Sometimes it's made in neighborhood bars, in acts of defiance, and in the courage of people willing to stand up when silence feels safer. In 1967, a group of Angelenos did just that, sparking outrage that turned into activism. And in doing so, they helped set the stage for a movement that would change Los Angeles and the world forever.